Hi, welcome to Gamers Web. My name is Mark, and in this video I'm going to paint up the Konig Battlefleet set from Warcradle Studios for Dystopian Wars. Let's check it out. Hi, as I said in the intro, this video is going to take a look at painting the Konig fleet that we assembled in the last video as part of our ongoing series of getting into Dystopian Wars. Okay, so lots of different ways you can paint your ships. You can leave them unpainted if you want to, but you're missing out on a great part of the hobby if you do so. So we try and keep things as simple as possible, and we're doing it step by step. Right, so everything's assembled, we now need to paint them. You can come to the Dystopian Wars website and look for inspiration there. There is lots of help in the media section on the website. Click to the media section and go down, and you'll see that there are wallpapers of the Dystopian Wars vessels. So we've got the Commonwealth, and we've got Empire, quite a lot of Enlightened. Then here we've got the Imperial ones, so we've got Templehof, Ice Maiden, Konig, which is the one that we've actually just built. You can use those as inspiration, or you could actually go to Google and do a search for painted Dystopian Wars Imperium, and there's lots and lots of lovely images here that we can see. People have really taken their time doing some of the stuff, like if we look at, say, this one here, this is actually on spiky bits, but it's actually taken from the actual Dystopian Wars box set. So lots of great stuff, lots of great inspiration. There's just like a Prussian fleet from Dystopian Wars, and quite well detailed, quite a complex paint scheme though. That's very influenced by World War II. Speaking of which, we could also search for German battleships of World War II, or German battleships, or German battleships of World War I even. So the only problem is if you search for German battleships of World War II, you're going to get black and white images on the most. We have here a fleet recognition for battle cruisers, and you can see that although the images are quite small, they do tend to be like a grey colour, often with a red hull. There's a reason for that. That's because basically if you're a grey colour, you're not going to stick out like a sore thumb on the ocean. And it's also why they tend to be a couple of colours of grey, so dark grey, light grey, and whites as well, because you just blend into the background. Okay, so that's a few. Some of these are actually Atlantic fleets. There's the Bismarck, and it's all grey and dark, not very bright. So that's a good idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these as influence, and we'll start painting our vessels in a moment. So before I go to paint them, I'm going to prime them using a grey car primer, which is quite cheaply available from most auto suppliers. This one's from Halfords, though you can use any neutral primer for them from your local hobby shop such as Games Workshop or from Wayland Games. And once we've got this done, we'll go on to the next step. So I shall see you in a moment. Okay folks, so we had a quick look at some of the images online of battleships and some of the painted Dystopian Worlds models from the Imperium fleet. So now I'm going to get down to painting them. Going to do this relatively easily. I've already undercoated the vessels using a grey spray primer, or rattle can primer, if you want to call it that. And I'm going to use a simple colour scheme, hopefully, to pick out details and hopefully go from there. Okay, so I'm going to use predominantly Vallejo paints, though there are a couple of scale 75 and there's also everyone's favourite Nuln Oil, which I'm going to use on the vessels. Right, a lot of people use wet palettes. I don't like using a wet palette. I find it quite messy, and I don't get the consistency that I need with paint. I tend to use, if possible, airbrush paints, because they're very thin and they're more or less ready to go out of the pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up and I'll show you what I'm using. I've got my models. I've got a light source directly above me and a light source here, and I've got these paints here, which is, I've got a Vallejo dark grey. I'll leave a list of all the paints in the description. I've got a Vallejo Modeler Saddle Brown. I've got a scale 75 All Necrotic Gold. I've got a scale 75 Black Alchemy, which is a brilliant, very dark metallic. I've got a Vallejo Ocean Grey. I've got a Vallejo German Grey. And I've got a Vallejo Oily Steel. And then I also have Nuln Oil. Okay, so almost ready to get everything done. I've got my brushes. This is just from a set from Humbrol, because I wanted to use some used brushes. So these start at 0, 2, 000, and I think this is a 3, isn't it? A 4. So that's a set for £8.99 from the wonderful guys at Wonderland Models in Edinburgh. And I've also got this as well, which is a makeup brush. This was only £1 from the pound shop. You could probably get these very, very cheaply if you look around. It's got extremely soft bristles and it's very, very good for dry brushing. Right. Other than that, I've got a cheap palette, which I use for more or less everything. As you can see, it's covered in paint and I've just cleaned it as well. I've got a cheap palette, which I use for putting my paints on and taking them out, rather than having to constantly paint out of a pot like the Games Workshop ones I transfer onto a palette. Right, so without further ado, I'm going to start off. I'm going to start with the smallest one first, which shouldn't be too difficult to do. What I'm going to do with all of the paints, sorry, all of the vessels, is I'm going to get Ocean Grey, and I'm just going to put some Ocean Grey into my palette, like that. I'll just move these to one side, then you can see them. And if I can work out how to do it, I'll put a pop-up with the Ocean Grey on the screen. Right, so I'm going to put some paint on my brush, a fair amount of paint, and then I'm just going to get as much of the paint off the brush as I can. And then I'm going to use the technique dry brushing, which is basically just going over the model with this light grey all over, and it will slowly bring out any of the details. Now, because this is my first coat, I don't really need to worry too much about which direction I'm dry brushing, but it does bring out some of the raised edges on the actual model. Now, this grey is very, very similar to my base coat, so I may have to highlight it with a slightly lighter grey. So I didn't realise how close it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very, very quickly dry brush all of these. Now, I'm still on my first dip of the paintbrush into the paint, and I've done 3 without going back in again. And as you can see on my fingernail, it comes onto my fingernail, still quite a bit left there. And when you first discover dry brushing and you do it for the very first time, it's like magic. It's like witchcraft. It's a very, very strange sensation because you actually see all the detail come rushing out. Okay, so I'm going to put a wee drop more paint onto my palette and use the cloth to wipe it off. Now, this is just a piece of kitchen roll. You can use a dry brushing texture board, or you can use more or less anything, really. I would suggest using something that you don't really need to do this technique, because you don't want to end up dry brushing onto something that you really need. So, like this. Hopefully this will all show up in the video. Now this, because this is slightly bigger, I'm just using a bit more paint. And we'll do the same on the next missile. And it brings all the little details come straight to the surface because this paint is slightly lighter than the base coat. Now if I was using an even lighter paint, it would definitely pop straight away. You'd be able to see almost instantaneously the effects. Like this. But dry brushing gives the model a bit of a texture as well, because you're putting the paint on that's quite dry. So it gives it a bit of a texture. And the big one. Now just be careful you don't drop them, especially the big kit, because with it being resin it will crack or shatter. So what I'm hoping to do, if I can get them made up, is to make some bases and 3D print them, and then leave the STLs for free so other people can use them. And as you can see, the details coming out straight away on that. So we just very, very quickly do this. Now, I am by no means, or stretches of the imagination, a brilliant painter. I used to be very good, but my eyesight is very, very poor these days. I've been wearing glasses for 30 odd years and my eyes are not good at all, as my health has deteriorated and my eyes have deteriorated as I've got older. So I challenge myself all the time when I'm painting to try and get as best as possible. And one of the things I've started doing recently in the past year or so is using airbrush paints, because airbrush paints are really, really good for getting good results. Right, so that's our first lot of dry brushing, and we're going to go from there. I'm just going to get some water because I didn't get any water to wash my brushes. I decided that I'm going to actually give it a little bit of a higher highlight. I've just picked a couple of more paints up. I've got a sky blue from Vallejo, and I've got a Vallejo white grey, which I'm going to put into my palette. I'm going to try the sky blue and see how that is, because it's still not very bright really. I'm just going to drop a little bit of that in, and then hopefully I'm going to mix it in with the last bit of grey that was left into my palette. And as you can see on the paint, on the cloth, it's a lot lighter. But I'm going to do a lighter pass with this because it's a much lighter colour. So, and I'm also going to go in a downward direction across it, and as you can see, the detail just pops out straight away. So that'll do. That's fine. That's a fine colour. So I'm just going to very quickly dry brush all these again. base coat dry brushed. Now I'm just going to clean off my brush. And the good thing about these brushes, they're £1. They're very, very cheap. It's still got a little bit of paint on it. Okay, right, so next colour. What I normally do is with my palette, I normally have light colours on one side and dark colours on the other. And on occasion, I will have metallics in the middle, and then I can mix between them. If I need to have a metallic and make it slightly lighter, I can just mix paint into them. That's when I'm using this palette. I've got a bigger palette that I use, but it doesn't fit in front of my keyboard. So when I'm painting, I can't actually do the kind of effects that I really want to do. Right, so I'm now going to use German dark grey. Again, this is a model brush paint, and it's quite thin. So I'm going to do this on the other side. Just put a wee drop in, and I'm going to get, I think I'll go for this one, yeah. These are brand new brushes, I've not used these before. And as always, with a brush, the most important part is the point. I'm going to put some paint on my brush, and it's important that you don't go all the way up to the ferrule, which is the metal part of the brush, because that way you don't get paint sticking inside here, because with it being acrylic paint, it dries extremely quickly, and you can end up ruining your brushes very, very quickly. Right, so a lot of people do use wet palettes. I don't really like them because I don't find I've got enough control. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get my brush, and I'm going to take from the top, and I'm just going to paint a dark grey splodge like that in a regular pattern. And I'm going to do another one here like that, and then at the back I'm going to do another one like that. And I'm going to carry on to the top of the deck, and then I'm going to turn the model around. I'm just going to do the same thing again. Dark grey splodge, dark grey splodge, and then another dark grey splodge there. So it looks like it's camouflage, and then I might just do one there. Yeah, so 3 on one side, 4 on the other, and then I'm just going to repeat that across all the vessels. Okay, so that's my basic outlines done. I'm now going to go to a lighter colour. I'm going to go to white grey, and I'm going to do this mainly for the little ships and see how it looks. And what I'm going to do is shape my brush. Yep, that should do. Now, in fact, actually I'm going to use a smaller brush. And I do tend to paint quite a lot with a zero brush, because I find that zero brushes are quite easy to control. If I can find one of my zero brushes, there we go. Right. And again, make sure the point's alright on the brush. And I don't need to put too much paint on because I'm only going to be using a small bit. What I'm going to do on this one, on smaller vessels, is I'm going to mirror the actual dark grey stripes that I've put on, like that, so that I'm just going to follow the contour of the dark grey stripe. And it doesn't matter which side you do it on, as long as you do it at the side. And this brush is not keeping a point, so I'm just going to go back to my original brush, because that brush isn't keeping a point. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see that I'm just going to put a very thin coat on. You don't have to do it on all of them, and then you can actually do maybe 1 or 2 of this on its own, like that. So hopefully when this is done we should get a fairly decent effect once it's got a wash on it. As I say, if you can help it, try and keep them all in one direction. So we've got like a kind of a zebra stripe or a tiger stripe. And I'm just going to repeat this on all the models. All the little ones anyway. I don't think I'm going to do it on the bigger ships. Move on to the decking. So again, because I'm using a light colour, I'm using a brown, I'm just going to put that in on my light side of my palette. And there's already a little bit of water in there because this is not an airbrush paint, this is a model paint. So I'm just going to put a little bit more water in to make it a little easier to work with. And all you need to do is just mix it around with a brush. Now bear in mind that acrylic paint tends to dry very, very quickly. So we need to work quite quick. So now it's a question of carefully painting on the interior of the decks of the vessels. So anything that you think is going to be part of the deck, that's going to be planks or decking, no matter what it's made out of, doing whatever neutral colour you're going to be using. I'm using the brown because I think the brown works really well. And it doesn't matter at this stage if I go over things because I'm going to touch those up once I get around to doing that part. I'll do the same on the back of the vessel. So now ideally before you actually put the ship together and put the top part of the ship on, you should paint this, but I don't have time to do that, and I've already assembled them for as part of this video, or part of the last video I should say. So like that, I'm just going to do those for all of them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the sound because this music's getting annoying, and I'll only put the sound back on again when we get to something that I need to explain.
Okay, sorry about the lack of audio here. Basically, my neighbours were being very noisy. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the scale 75 metal to actually pick out all the metal details on the vessels. It's really dark colour and looks really good on battleships, so I really like it. Okay, so back on with the video.
Okay, so I've put all the base coats of metal on the smaller ships. I'm going to do the bigger ships now, and it's more or less the same technique. And what I've also done is I've done the prow, the lip that goes around the prows on all the vessels, or the deck of the vessels, in silver. I just realised I've missed a bit on this one. There we go. But I'm leaving the actual prow itself plain, because I'm going to do those in gold, I think. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the larger vessels now. And again, I'm just going to let you listen to the music for a moment, and I'll time-lapse through this. Okay, so that's all the base metals done on all of the fleet. What I'm going to do with the next part is put the golds down. So I should say all the base silvers down. I'm going to put this Old Necrotic Negro gold from scale 75. This is a really nice, very rich colour. I'm just going to put some of that into my palette. And I'm going to use this quite sparingly on the smaller ships, but I'm going to put quite a lot of it on my capital ships, so they actually pop. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to actually got some water on there for some reason. I'm just going to pick out little details, if I can find some, on here. Yeah, I'm going to do the top part of my Konig tower in this colour. That, and I'll do the cross at the front in this colour, but I'm going to leave the rest of the cross, sorry, the rest of the hull the same. And I'm also going to do the crosses on the side of the smokestacks using this gold.
Now obviously because I'm painting on front of a camera, I'm not taking my time and trying to rush it. I'm noticing things that I've missed. So on this vessel, what I've missed out is the train track. So I'm just going to wash my brush, and I'm just coming back in again. I'm just going to quickly paint some of my silver off my palette onto the train track. As you can see, it's not very neat, but that doesn't really matter because this ship is a 1/1600th scale or something like that. If you imagine that a person is 6 foot tall and they stood at the side of this gun, they'd be probably up to the bottom of the barrel if they stood on tiptoes. Maybe not even that tall. These vessels are very, very big. They're meant to be, you know, like crewed by thousands of people. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Just going to pick the Konig tower at the top out in gold, and the crosses, the Maltese crosses, I'm going to pick those out in gold. And it does then leave the vessels more or less ready to play. It just wants to get a wash to be ready to play. I'll move on to the capital ships. Now with the capital ships, I'm going to use the gold to pick out the trim on the smokestacks, and I'm going to use it on various other details where I can find on the vessels, and I'm also going to put the trim at the front of the prow in gold. So I'm going to start that off first. So when we do this, it's going to set the vessel apart from the smaller ships, because these are, you know, like very expensive to build and maintain and run, and automatically gives us a really nice profile straight away. Let's pin that down to there, like that. Now, even if you're new to painting, these are quite simple to paint, and you can probably get your entire fleet done in about an hour. And I know I'm actually rushing things here because I'm doing it on a camera, which is not an excuse. I should go stop saying that, but right, what was we going to do? Yeah, so I'm going to do the Maltese cross. As I would say, falcon as in Maltese falcon. Oh well. Lack of sleep does that to people sometimes. And now my stomach is growling at me because I've not eaten properly today. And being a diabetic is not a good thing to not do. Not eat and paint. Okay, so going on to the washing stage now. As I said, I don't have very much Nuln oil. I've only got like a tiny bit left in that. I did find another bottle which has only got about the same in, but I've actually mixed in a bit of Agrax Earthshade. I'm just going to shake it up a little bit, and then we'll have a look at this on my palette and see how it looks. I'm going to get a larger brush for this, so I'm going to use this size 4, and I'm just going to pop a little bit onto my palette like that. See on my tissue, see how it looks. It looks alright.
Okay, so washing, don't need to worry about being precise with washing. Just take paint out your brush and run it all over the vessel. So I'm painting the entire thing, over the metallics, over the decking, everything. And it looks very dark at the moment, but hopefully when this dries, it should dry a lot lighter, pick out all the recesses and all the detail, and give us what we're looking for. If not, it's no worry, because we can always rescue, hopefully rescue it. I say can always, but occasionally. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually paint the Null Oil mix over all of the smaller vessels. I'll do the smaller vessels first, and then let those dry, and then we'll come back and have a look and see what it's like. Okay, welcome back. Right, so whilst I've been off camera, I had to do quite a bit of things off camera because my neighbours were making too much noise. I've just had to start this again for the third time because of the dogs going mad. But anyway, I've painted a few things. I've done the red accents using Mephiston Red. I've highlighted the generators and the weapons with pale blue, and then dry brushed it with sky blue after washing it with the ink wash, and then gone over all of the turrets with the ocean grey on all the vessels, touching up little bits and pieces that have been missed by the dry brushing process, or where I've gone over with another colour. So far they're looking quite good. I'm quite pleased with them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to probably give a dry brush over the smaller vessels. Now if you remember, I did the white accents on the camo type thing on the white ones, but on the small ones, but not on the bigger ones. That's because they're smaller. I want them to stand out a little bit more. So what I might do is just actually dry brush those with the ocean grey over the top of everything, but do it very, very lightly so it just picks out the accents. And then I'm going to use some of these, which have been sitting in a box for about 12 years. These are Games Workshop's Space Marine transfer sheet, and I'm going to use the Maltese crosses from the Black Templars, and I'm going to use some of the numbers, the Roman numerals, and put them on the Konig and also on the two larger vessels as well, hopefully. And I use my little pot with some decals to do that. And then finally we have got our SRS planes to sort out. So to do that, I'm just going to get a dark Prussian blue, put some of this onto my palette. It's quite a dark colour, but it doesn't really matter too much because I'm going to dry brush this on. If I can pick up my brush, just pop these over there for the moment. And then I'm just going to get this and I'm just going to dry brush all over this base, like this. Don't have to be precise, I just need to try and get the blue on. So, like that, quite simple. And then I will eventually just go over this with some of my lighter blue whilst this is still wet, and then just very lightly dry brush it on top of the waves. So I've just added the sky blue onto this mix, and it gives quite an effective thing on the pink. And then I'll just pick the planes out, and I'll do the same again with this one. This is a larger plane, this is the special one I think, and then what I'll do with the planes is I'll just pick them out in a different colour, probably gunmetal. That. Very quick, no fuss, no messing, and then again I'll go put my brush into the lighter blue and then just, whilst this is still wet, going with the direction of the waves, so I get the peaks of the waves should slightly be lighter, like that. Okay, so those are done. It's just a question of stopping painting the planes and painting the base itself, and then adding these decals on, and my fleet's finished. So I'll do those off camera because it's too noisy here at the moment, and we'll come back and we'll have a look at the finished fleet, and I'll put some photographs at the end of the video. Okay, so once again, many thanks go to Freeland and Stuart at Wayland Games and Warcradle for the help with this video. And in the next video, hopefully, I should be playing against Roland. So thank you for tuning in, thank you for watching, and no matter where you are in the world, please stay safe, look after yourself, and happy gaming.